Alright, so we are going to go through the solution to the last studio. Our goal is something like this, where we have this carousel thing with the movies, flipping through them using these keys, and we have this new layout down here with we've got a grid inside a grid, because we have this divide and then this smaller divide within this container. So step one, I think, was to create that new layout. This thing, ooh, yeah, this doesn't look so good unless you make your window. There we go. Okay. So let's run what we have. Oh, actually, so one thing I'm going to do today, in the spirit of you guys going off on your own, I'm just going to demonstrate how you don't need the CS50 IDE, especially to do front-end work. It's super easy. You just need a text editor. So I use this text editor called Sublime, which you can download for free. Actually, they kind of ask you to pay, but you can sort of ignore them as long as you want. As soon as you get it, you can tell yourself once you get placed in a job, then you'll pay for it. So I'm in the FlickList directory, and I'm gonna open the current directory using the text editor Sublime, and I get a window like this with here are my files. It's basically just like TextEdit or Word. It's a really lightweight thing. There's no fancy stuff like a built-in. Actually, there is a fancy built-in terminal, but we don't need to use it. And then to look at your page, all you have to do is open it in the browser. Because it's the front end, we don't even need a server. So you can see the path here to the file is just the local path to that file on my computer. I'm going to do this in Chrome, actually, not Safari. Okay, so this is what we start with. It's pretty much the same as last week. So our first goal is to change the HTML to look something more like that example. At least we want something like this. So what did I tell you to do? I guess I didn't give you a lot of guidance. So we just do it. So let's just do it. Okay. So we want this section. Oh, wait a minute. I thought I gave... When I gave you guys the code to start with, were these here or were they not here? They were there? Okay, my bad. I meant to just already have done this for you where they're not in columns anymore. Let's run it again now. So what I did was these things are arranged side by side. Back in Studio 3 we did that. So I'm going to undo that by deleting those classes, these column classes. And now we should see that this section is below the other one, so that's how we want it. So now what we want is this form to be over on the right and then the other stuff on the left. And that's all in here in this browse section. So what I'm going to do is make a container that's going to hold, okay. So first, I'm going to give this section a class of container fluid, so it can hold these columns. And then in here, I'm going to make a row class. So when you make these columns, generally you put them inside a bootstrap row container class. I'm going to end that div. Then finally we can make divs for each of these actual column sections. call 8. We can go back later and choose the best one of these breakpoints. But for now, I'm going to go with this one, small. And let me see. I'm just going to close this, so it's empty for the time being. I'm just going to delete that to do. It's kind of in the way. And then this stuff we want to be over on the right, so I'll make another div. And I'm going to move this list for now. I'm just going to put it inside here, so it's not going to be quite yet what we want, but we should now see this list on the left, and then this form and the header should be to the right of that. And it did not work, so I didn't save. There we go. Make sense? So next, we actually want to subdivide this left-hand side into some more stuff. Let's take a look. So the left-hand side is this container A, so we want some smaller containers in there, which I called A1 and A2. We can go in and modify these later, but for now we know we need another row to hold the columns. And then we need the columns themselves. And then this was a 7, 7, 5 breakdown. So within my left-hand outer container, I put a new row with a column container that takes up 7 columns, and then another column container that takes up 5 columns. Those match up with these percentages, 7 divided by 12 versus 5 divided by 12. And yeah, so I think it seems like it kind of works without it. Just like I could get rid of this and it'll work. And I wish I actually knew the smart answer to this. Pretty sure you do want the row, but I don't exactly know why, because it seems like it works anyway. Let me look that up and get back to you. So that's a good question. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I'm at where you're at. Notice that the formatting is a little messed up. Don't quite know why. It works with the row. Yeah. So I deleted the row. I'm going to put it back. And then I'm going to look at what specifically all the stuff we're supposed to do. So this stuff we're supposed to put in the right-hand side. We did that. We want to give this an attribute. We want to give it a unique ID. That's this one, A1. So I'm going to give it an ID of browse info, because this is where we're going to display information about the current movie that the person's looking at. And okay, we were asked to put both of these things inside actually another container of class well, which what that does, the well is this red thing here. It's like just kind of a nice box container. And it rounds the corners for you, yeah. row just lets Bootstrap know that you're doing another grid system. Yeah. It's weird because the columns like still work even if you don't let it know, but I think it breaks in like subtle ways, I guess. Yeah. So we're asked to wrap the entire row that holds both of these things inside the well. To be honest, actually, I think we could just give the row itself a second class. I'm going to do that. You can do it either way, but if you can minimize the number of the div craziness, it's good. Like, look at all this. So I'm going to try this. I'm pretty sure this will work fine. Actually, let's see. If not, we'll fix it. I don't know. It might be broken later. We'll come back to it. Oh wait, this is my well that I just added, and oh, here's my list. Maybe this will work. Hold on. I'm gonna put the list inside the smaller of the nested columns. So here's my well, and then my list is inside here. Obviously, we're gonna get rid of that list in a minute. Okay. So maybe we're done with that. If it's not working quite right, we'll come back to it. So next, we're going to add some dummy code into the HTML we just set up for ourselves. So in the A1 container, we're going to put a fake movie title and description. And the A1 container is this one. So I'm going to put an H4 here. Twilight is our movie. Put a little horizontal line. Paragraph. The vampires fall in love. Has anyone seen Twilight? I don't know what happens. I think that's more or less accurate. Alright, looks good. And then in the right side, we're asked to put a placeholder image in a button. Copy this image. So that's this one. So I'm just gonna delete this list. Image source equals that thing. And below that, a button. Add to watch list. Okay. Perfect. Great. We need to add an ID to this button. ID equals add to watch list. Okay. Alright, now we're going to make this cool carousel thing. So what I'm going to do is open up the example I made earlier and sort of figure out what all the pieces we need. Oh, no way. Neither link works in this paragraph. Brutal. Brutal. Well, do you guys want to like work on this and I'll release a video like next week or something? Do you want a chance to work on it more? Or should I just keep going with this? I'll keep going. Did anyone get past here? Okay. So let's do this together. We'll Bootstrap. I'm just going to Google Bootstrap carousel. And as you can see, I've been here already. this is, figure this out. So this was one of the links I meant to send you. So this is their example, and this is their code. So the main components we have here, we have an outer container div with these two classes, carousel and slide. Inside that we have this list, and this is just these little indicators here. For our example, we don't even want that, so I'm going to ignore this section. And then in here, this is where we specify the images. So we make a smaller container in here with a class carousel-inner in this role list box. And then inside of that, we put all the stuff we want. And the important thing in terms of wiring this up is that each item has a class of item is the class name. And exactly one of these things should have a second class active to specify that this is the current one being shown. And then these things down here are those left and right buttons, and we'll add that in a sec. So first, let's just get the basic thing in here. Where was that? Here. So instead of this image with the vampires, I'm going to put this carousel. I'm going to make a div class equals carousel slide, I believe. ID equals, I'm going to call it browse carousel. Some of these extra properties, let Bootstrap do the JavaScript stuff that it needs to behind the scenes. So data right equals carousel. Okay, so there's my outer div for my carousel. I'm going to make my thing a little bigger so it has some room to breathe. Inside of that, we're going to skip this stuff. We just need an outer container with this class and then inner items with these classes. And here, instead of using divs, I'm going to use a list like we had earlier. I'm going to make a UL with this class, carousel inner. Yes, you're right. So we also need this property role list box. And then here we're going to put some list items. These should have class item. And I'll make this first one the active one. So this one, only this one, is going to also have this active class. And inside of here, I'm going to put an image with, I'll come back to the source. Okay. I'm going to copy this and make another one. And one more. And these ones are not active, so I'm going to get rid of this. And I believe that is all we need to see, at least see something. You still see that old list, hopefully. Thought I deleted that. Oh, maybe our... Oh, yeah. So that's kind of interesting. So I think I did delete that list, but then our jQuery, as soon as the JavaScript file runs, is still doing it what it does, which is, let's open this up. In the JavaScript file, in the render function, it says, for each browse item, right here, section browse, find all the lists, find the list in here and append this item view. So it's still adding those things to that same list that I made. So maybe I'll do this early. I'm going to comment this out, which we're going to end up doing later anyway. Okay, yeah. How do you comment a whole block? Highlight the whole thing and then push Command//. At least on a Mac, that's what it is. Windows probably just Control/. Yeah, that's for Sublime. I think that also works in the IDE. Yeah. // okay, so my carousel is not showing up. Let's see if we can diagnose the problem. What about an anchor? This? Oh, am I crazy? These are just open close ones? Oh. Shows how well I know HTML. What? Sorry, one sec. Okay, let's see, it could be just that the images are non-existent, so then they're not taking up any space, so then everything is collapsing because there's nothing forcing it to take up any space. So I'm going to find, I'm just going to use that same image from the Twilight image. Let's see, where is that? So I have 3 of these. Huh, it was there for a sec. Okay, let's diagnose this. So we're in this section. Blah, 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 divs, divs, divs. Keep going. We have a carousel here. It has a UL. The UL has no list items in it because of this when we clear everything in the render function. You know what would be even better? Maybe I just won't link to this file. I'm going to comment this out. I'm not going to load our JavaScript yet. We're not ready for it. Okay, there's our image, which we had before, but the cool part is that now it's in a carousel. We can't see that yet because we haven't put those buttons in, but the other images are secretly there, we can assume. So let's implement the buttons. So let's go over here and look at them. So the way they do this is they've got an anchor tag instead of a normal button tag. With some classes that are important and the href links back to the carousel itself. So all this is important to make sure to wire everything up correctly. And so they've got these anchor tags, and inside the anchor tag they have a span with these classes, and this is what gives it its appearance. So the actual content of the link is going to be this glyphicon, chevron left, and the other one's chevron right, those little chevron-y arrow icons. This we don't need. So let's do that. After our list. First, I'm just going to make the skeleton. Here's our left button. Here's our right button. So things we need are class, left, carousel, control. Hyperlink reference is the carousel itself, which we called browse carousel. Roll button, data, slide, slide, short for previous, meaning when they click this, it should go to the previous thing. And then we're going to give some classes to this span inside here. Glyphicon, chevron, left. And there's a lot of these glyphicons that you can browse when you want to use them for various things in your page. Just Google Bootstrap glyphicon. Let's try this before we do the right one. Nice, there's something here. I don't see the chevron yet, but there's a typo. Yeah, thanks. Glyph. Yeah. That's right. Glyphicon. Yeah. Hey, there it is. Okay. So let's do the other one. This one is right. Reference to carousel, button, data, slide is next. Copy this. And this is a chevron right. Great. There's the two buttons. It looks like they're not working. And in fact, they are not working because we have to include our JavaScript. I forget where I asked you to do that, but at the top of which part? Oh, really? Shoot. Okay. Yeah, I put a to-do here, but I forgot to put a to-do in the thing. So these buttons aren't going to work until we include JavaScript from Bootstrap. So remember when we included this link, which we got from the Bootstrap homepage, and there were like these 3 different Bootstrap libraries from the content delivery network, and we only needed at the time this one. Now we're going to need this additional one. So this is, it says latest compiled and minified JavaScript. So this is their JavaScript, which is essentially doing a lot of the same type of stuff that we're doing in our JavaScript file. Manipulating the DOM based on events that happen. Oops, I pasted the whole thing. Say that again, which section was what? Okay, the Bootstrap page. Go to getbootstrap.com and then click Getting Started. Now we have our JavaScript. The other thing is, even if this, well actually I think we'll see it. Let's test and see if these buttons work now. Hey, there we go. Okay. So we have a carousel with some dummy data. Okay, we're also asked to put this CSS rule in, which is going to just prevent, if the image is really big, it won't let the carousel get really big, and it's also going to center the carousel in its container, which will be important. Let's see if, yeah, so like here especially, once this breakpoint gets hit, oops, where the form drops below, it's going to look bad if this is left aligned. We want it centered in the container. So to do that, do this little CSS trick, margin auto, which has the browser automatically decide what the margin should be on the left and right sides, and it is how you center things in CSS. Kind of dumb, I think, honestly. CSS is kind of weird sometimes. Should be a more explicit way of centering things. Okay, so now let's put real data in here. So to do that, we're going to open up our JavaScript file. And it says the first thing we want to do, do people like get this far where you have read this part? Not really? Are you guys getting anything out of this? Okay, great. So, okay, we want to put real data in here, right? So we need to do stuff from within here, within our jQuery. So because we've rearranged things in this way where, you know, now, previously we had a list of 20 movies on the browse list. Now we're only ever showing one movie at once. So we still have those 20 movies in memory, like they're right. We still have them here in this browse items property of the model, but we need an additional, we need to keep track of an additional thing here, which is at any given moment we need to say, well, which one is the one that we're showing, right? So I'm going to make a new property called active movie index. I'll initialize it to 0. So this number represents the index within this array that our current movie is on, the index of that movie in this array. So that was step 4. I think that was all we are asked to do, is add that property here. Yep. Now we're on step 5, where we actually do stuff to display the stuff on screen. So step 5 said all this, everything we're doing here for the browse items is pretty much obsolete at this point. So let's actually just delete it and actually We won't delete it. We can put it down here if we want to reference it later. But kicked it out of here. Yeah, so that was render browse item. So we're inside the render function, which has 3 sections basically. The first is this short thing where we clear both sections. Then we iterate over all the watch list items and add them. And then we iterate over all the browse list items. And that's the part that we got rid of just now. So instead of iterating over all the browse list items, we pretty much only need to do stuff for the one active browse list item. So the first step would be to figure out what that movie is, like which movie is the currently active movie. So that's this step here, figure out the current active movie. We got the starter code, active movie equals, fill in the blank. I'm going to do that. Bar active movie equals, and this is pretty simple actually. We have all the browse list movies, and we know the index of the active one, so we just have to go get the thing in the array at that index. So it's just watch list items at, model dot watch list items at the index of model dot active movie index. So now this is the index is just the number, the index. This is the actual movie that's currently being displayed, or that ought to be currently displayed, and we're going to display it now. Yeah, browse items, thanks. Yep, sorry about that. So we've done step 5B. We figured out the current movie. Now let's try to insert some stuff into the DOM for that movie. First thing we'll try to do is the title and overview. That's this stuff. So, alright, so what I'm going to do is jQuery selector. We're trying to manipulate the contents of, where is it? This right here, right? So how can we do that? Well, we know the ID of its parent is browse info, so we can just use a selector like this. Browse info h4 dot text is active movie dot title, original title. It's not working, but that's because I'm commenting out our JavaScript file. So let's try again now. And I'm also gonna not do this, so our carousel doesn't get emptied out. Okay, great. So the title changed to Captain America because that's the actual first movie in our, sorry? Yeah, the code I wrote. Yep. So we grab the correct DOM element, then we set its text equal to the title of the active movie. And we can do a really similar thing for the over. And what did I delete? I just commented out this because I'll put it back and we'll see. It doesn't really matter actually. It just makes our carousel go away, but we don't need it now. So you know what? I'll just keep that. So you don't have to comment. Don't have to comment anything out. So now I'm going to do the paragraph underneath. And we can do more or less the same sort of thing here. Browse, info, paragraph, dot, text, active movie dot overview. We should see the Captain America plot here. Great. Oops. Okay, done with that. Yeah, can I go back up to when I declared the active movie index? This? Yeah. So this is like just another property inside this model. So this thing starts off as an empty array. This thing starts off as an empty array. And this thing starts off as 0. Questions about that? We're good? Okay, yeah. Why would I not put this in brackets? So if I put this in brackets, what I'm saying is active movie index is an array with one thing in it, and that one thing is a 0. But I don't want this to be an array. I just want this to be a number. And I'm going to use this number later inside brackets to figure out. So I'm using it wherever that here, right? There's brackets here, and this is that 0, right? Yeah. So that would be right. That would be like saying this, which doesn't. Yeah. It's just an int. Yeah. So if this was C, we would say whatever. We would say I have an array called watchlist items, I have an array called this, and I have an int called this. We don't declare types in JavaScript. Okay, so we got this. Next step was this button. Let's bring it back to life and have it function again. So actually, we more or less want the same code we had previously. The only difference is previously, and so this is from here, right here. We made this button back in the day. So for each browse list item, we made a separate button for that one item, and we made it dynamically in our JavaScript code. Here, we only need one button. We hard coded it, or we just put it right here in the HTML. So we don't need to like create a new button like we're doing here. We just need to modify the button that's already on the screen. And we gave it an ID, which was just add to watch list. So from here, we can more or less do the same, everything else that we did previously. So I'll type that out one by one instead of pasting it. Here. So actually, I don't need this first thing, text add to watch list, because we already put that in the HTML as well. I'm going to give it a class with these. I'm going to give it these bootstrap classes, button, primary. Actually, we could have done that in the HTML too. Probably would do that in the HTML, but for now, we'll just do it here. We're going to give it a click handler. So when this button is clicked, we want to add a new, want to push a new movie onto the model.watchlist. I'm going to come back to that in a sec. And then we're going to re-render everything. Here we said movie, but here we don't have a movie. There is no variable called movie because we're not iterating through a bunch of items anymore. We're only talking about one movie, and that's this one, the active movie. Oops. So whichever movie is currently being shown, obviously we want our button to, if clicked, push that particular movie onto the watch list. And finally, we want to disable the button if the movie's already in the watch list, and we can do that just like we did before. Oops. Disabled. The disabled property is going to be equal to this Boolean expression. The index of the, and again, the active movie does not equal -1. If it does not equal -1, then we do want to disable the button. Let's see if this worked. Looks like it didn't work. Some problems here. It's complaining about, well, I'll just verify, yeah. It's complaining about line 129, something with the parentheses. I forgot a comma here. Okay. Let's try again. Okay, this button looks better, and if I click this, hopefully Captain America is going to show up. Great. And now it's disabled. Perfect. Say that again? You missed the part where I added the button. Yeah, so actually I added the button as I was doing this, so yeah. I added the carousel and all that, blah, 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 and then I put the button right below the carousel. Yeah. Okay, next, let's put the actual poster images into the carousel. So I give you some starter code here. We're going to use this map function again. What we're going to do is we have an array of browse list items, and we want to turn that into an array of list item elements that we can put into our list inside the carousel. So, right, because ultimately, I'll work backwards. So, posters equals, let's say I have an array of li. So like this is a list item, and I'll put a couple of these in here. And maybe they actually each have a class, class of item, because the carousel needs that in order to work, right? So this is the end goal, what we want. We want an array of these things. And then we're going to say, then we're going to append them into here, this UL. So we're going to be creating these dynamically, and we want one for each browse item. So this is what we want, but instead of hard coding this, oh wait, and I'll just say, so let's say we have something like this, then the next line is, I'll add that other, I'm adding this part here, something dot append posters. we're going to put all these things inside that list item, or inside that list. I think the best way to do this here is to say, there are a couple ways you can do a jQuery selector to get a reference to this DOM node. So I could say section browse UL like I had previously. I could also say carousel inner. That might be a little more semantic because I feel like at this point we're thinking in terms of carousel. I'm going to say, give me the thing whose class is carousel inner. That's where we want to put the stuff. And actually, maybe I'll do one other thing to be safe. I'm going to say, give me the thing whose class is carousel inner that is inside of this browse section. Just in case, I don't know, what if we had a carousel somewhere else on our page or something. Okay, so does this line make sense? Hopefully. So now let's work backwards and create this array. So we have an array of browse items, and we want to turn that into an array of list item DOM nodes. So we're going to use the map function to transform each element of the previous array into an element in the new array. So we're going to say model.browse items.map for the function, and the function is going to take a movie. That's what these things are. And for each movie, ultimately, I'm going to return some jQuery that looks like this. And it has to have this class item. And inside of it, we want the poster image. So I'm going to work backwards, and I'm going to say var poster singular equals. Actually, we've already done this in a previous place. And because if you ever catch yourself doing this, you might think, maybe I should just make a function for this. Usually the rule is if you copy and paste something like this once, maybe that's okay. If you find yourself doing it again, then factor this out into a function and then call that function from elsewhere. But for now, we'll just copy and paste. Where was I? Here I was. So I'm making a poster. It's an image with the source equal to the poster URL for this movie. And the class is this bootstrap class image responsive. And I'm going to put that poster inside of this list item. Then poster. And then I'm going to return the entire list item from this map function. And now for each browse item, I'm going to get back a list item. And we have an error, I think. Oh no, we don't have an error, but we don't have stuff, and I don't know why. So I'm going to investigate here. Here's the list item. It's got an image, and this URL looks good. And in fact, look at that Captain America image there. That's definitely right. Oh, you know what the problem is? We have not given our carousel an active item. We've given it a bunch of items, but we didn't specify one of them as active. So I think that's the next step here is to activate the correct one. And in fact, I give you guys the one line of code you need. So I'm going to paste this in, and then we'll talk about it. Oops. So all I'm doing is this array of list items I'm saying give me the one at the active index and add a class to it, add the active class. Add class, this is just another jQuery function that obviously takes a DOM element and adds another class attribute to it. So we're going to make we have this array of these things that we just made up here. We're going to take one of them and give it this active class. Beautiful. All right. So to review this part, we mapped over the browse items, and for each browse item, we made a poster image whose URL, whose source was set to the correct poster URL for that movie, using this function that we wrote in an earlier studio, this one. And then we put that poster inside of a list item, which has this class of item, which the carousel needs, and then we returned that from the function. So then we got an array of these list items. And then we appended those list items into the carousel inner list. And then we set one of those things to have this additional class of active, which the carousel also needs so that it can decide which one to show on the screen. So cool. So this works on its own, but it doesn't. But none of our other stuff works. So even if I do this, it's still going to be Captain America, no matter what movie is showing. And yeah, everything's Captain America because our internal model still thinks the active movie is Captain America, even though this carousel is changing. Visually it's changing, but our program doesn't know about that. So we need to have our program essentially get notified whenever this thing changes so that it can update its own internal representation of what's happening. And to do that, we're going to add on to this code here. So I'm in the HTML file here, and recall that at the bottom of this file we have a script where this is from a previous studio, we just hooked up the form submit. We added a handler, so whenever the form is submitted, we execute this code. And I started this, a different sort of handler down here that says whenever the browse carousel, whenever this event happens on that browse carousel, so browse carousel.on this event, so it's kind of like on click, but instead of click, it's on this event, which is defined by Bootstrap. Slid.bs.carousel essentially means slid as in past tense, the carousel just slid. Whenever that happens, we get a chance to give it a callback function that will be executed in the event that the carousel just slid. So whenever the carousel just slid, what do we want to do? We want to update our model and then re-render. So our model, the thing that needs to change is model.active movie index should be whatever the new index was. So if it was 0 and then I click this, we want it to be 1 now. And the way we know what the new index is using some more jQuery here. I said find inside this carousel, find me the thing whose class is active, and there's only going to be one of those, and then give me the index of that thing, which is another jQuery function. It'll give you the index of a node inside of its parent if it's a list. And that is the index that should be the active index, so I can just say model.activeMovieIndex equals new index, which we computed up here with this line. Now our model knows about the change, and so now we can call render again. And when we do that, all this stuff is going to reflect the change because this active movie is now going to match up with the one that's being shown in the carousel. Let's see if that worked. Perfect. So you can see as soon as it finishes sliding, everything re-renders. The text changes, and hopefully, ooh, that's bad. It's very weird. Oh, I wonder if this is... I think we're failing to empty stuff out again, so we can look into that in a sec. I'm pretty sure this step that's on its own does work. Step 6. So the next one is CSS. So before we do that, let's fix this bug. So we are somehow failing to empty carousel. I'm going to say cell inner now, because that's the thing that we are placing things in, right? Where is it? Section browse, carousel inner. So presumably, if we empty that before we put things in it, then we won't get that duplicate effect. So let's see. Fingers crossed. Ooh, still not working. So I'm somehow failing to empty this out, and then it's additionally adding the movie again. So like this one was already in here, but it's getting added again. I wonder why that is. I don't know. I'm going to skip this and come back to it because we're running out of time, or we already have run out of time. Let's do some CSS real quick. So we want this thing to be red, and this reminder is the well container that we made. So dot well, I'll give it a background color of red. We also want a text color of white. See what that looks like. That looks good. And then we also want it not to have that border. I'm going to say border width is 0. That looks pretty good. We want this button to... Oh, first let's fix this, like this silly white space here. We need to say carousel inner should not have, and remember carousel inner is a UL. It's an unordered list here. And by default, these things have some padding on the left, so I'm just going to say padding left is 0. Great, and now that padding's not there, we want this watch list button to take up this full width, so I'm going to say, and we have an ID for that, add to watch list width should be 100% of its container. That looks better. That was the majority of the styles. I think so this padding looks weird to me. I feel like there should be more padding, and I think that's because of this sneaky thing I tried to do here where I gave this thing 2 classes, and I said maybe we'll come back and fix that. I think this is the reason we don't want that, or one of them. So let's just say I move this well out 1, I think the other way. I think this way works. Yeah, we want a well, and then we want 2 columns within the well. So we'll put the row. And the indentation's messed up in my HTML, but yeah, that's better. And I believe that's actually it for style. I think that's all we need. One thing we didn't talk about really is like the responsiveness. So like these columns, when do we want them to break? So SM is going to break on mobile phones, but not before that. And I think that's sort of reasonable. This is looking kind of silly. This obviously looks definitely not perfect. To be honest, I forget what I did in the solution. In my notes, I had extra small for the inner one. Okay. So that means this is never going to break. You're always going to have this thing to the right of this stuff. And that's definitely better, although once it starts, this looks pretty goofily small. So I don't know. I need... I think extra small means actually like never, just never break. We could test this. You know, you can test it on the devices on the dev tools. I'm pretty sure no matter what screen you pick, it's not gonna change. All right, I'll take questions on anything we've just done. All right, let's call it a night.